Good morning, everyone. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Taglavia. My guest host again this week is Allison Despathy. Allison, thank you so much for joining me again.
Yes, thank you for having me again, Mike. It's great to be here.
We had some great weather this past Saturday. It was really incredible, reminding us that spring is on the way.
Yes.
And the next morning we woke up to rain and snow, and
my daughter was crying.
By the end of the well, it's spring in Vermont.
I know, we can't expect anything else. Exactly.
Yeah, you want the weather to change, wait 15 minutes.
Right.
So, okay, I want to get right into this because there's a lot going on, not just in the state, but nationally. And I generally don't talk about national stuff. There are plenty of other hosts out there talking about it. And with everything going on in Vermont, there's enough here inside the borders of Vermont to keep everybody busy.
Yes.
So, but Justice Clarence Thomas did a presentation at University of Texas at Austin. Just a few days ago.
The 15th, right?
15th.
Right.
Okay. And he talked about the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. And guess what else he talked about, Allison?
You tell me.
He talked about progressivism.
Yeah.
And how horrible it is and how it cannot peacefully coexist with our Declaration, our Constitution. And I would argue it can't peacefully coexist with the Constitution of the state of Vermont as well.
No. And I think it's also talking about what progressivism is and means historically and now, and how it's just not aligning with what our country was built upon and founded upon and stands for.
Yeah, and it doesn't really align very well with the founding of this state as well. I mean, it's quite interesting, and I bring this up as often as I can, the phrase rugged individualism. You know who brought that up? And I will never forget who brought it up. And I'm going to
say
keep riding.
Ethan Allen, but I could be wrong.
It was brought up in a speech by the newly elected, newly minted Marxist, whatever you want to call him, progressive, Mayor Mamdani of New York City.
He said rugged individualism?
Well, he's going to replace rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism.
No!
There is no warmth in collectivism.
Nightmare. Who chooses what collectivism we follow?
Cadavers are not warm.
No, that's not good.
And collectivism will actually kill the city of New York.
We are individuals. That's what our country was founded upon. Exactly.
So that's why I said cadavers are not warm, because the city of New York is going to, unless it very quickly realizes that it made a huge mistake and get rid of the mayor. I don't even know if it's written into their into the charter or the bylaws of New York City if they could have a recall election if they find out quickly enough that this was a huge mistake and they need to reverse course.
Well, look at just the revolt, the history of tax revolts.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, think of the Tea Party. Why did our whole entire revolution happen?
Yeah, over 3% tax.
Taxes.
Yeah.
And now look where we are and look at where New York is. I mean, come on. And obviously we had our tax revolt, our property tax revolt here in Vermont, which helped to bring in a bunch of Republicans to balance things out there.
Yeah, including me.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for stepping in.
Yeah. So, but Clarence Thomas talked very eloquently. He talked about a lot of things. He talked about the people, the signers of the Declaration, and how they pledged their sacred honor, among other things, to each other for the cause.
Yes.
How in doing so they committed treason against the king and
tyranny.
It's just, he talked about being courageous and stepping out and stepping up, and even if you have to be alone in doing so.
Yes.
It's a great speech. I encourage everyone out there, if you haven't heard it, listen to the whole thing. And if you have kids and grandkids, encourage them to listen to it.
Yeah.
And ask them, if there are any of their teachers in school, middle school or high school, who would dare to play that speech
Yes,
and have their students listen to a great man.
And in line with that, read the Declaration of Independence with your kids.
Yeah.
I homeschooled all my kids through 8th grade, and that was one of my favorite things to do, is listen to what they were laying out their grievances to the king.
Yeah.
This is what you have done. This is not okay. And by the way, we're declaring our independence. And here we are, 250-year anniversary, right?
Yes.
And I'm a bicentennial baby. I was 50 this year. I was born in 1776. I'm not that old. I was born in 1976. So bicentennial baby. So this is a really huge celebration. This is a great year for our country, and we have to celebrate that. We live in a place where we can think differently and believe differently, and as long as we're kind and we don't abuse our neighbors and commit crimes, then we should be able to live with our differences. And this is what we're working to uphold.
Absolutely.
And to fight for. Exactly.
So yeah, I listened to the whole thing before the show. And I knew there was going to be some good stuff in there, but the whole speech, I mean, it's roughly 52, 53 minutes long, but every minute is worth it. Every minute is worth it. I mean, you just to hear what he went through in the growing up in, I think he grew up in Georgia, in the Jim Crow South.
I can't even imagine. Oh my gosh.
And you know the progress or the changes that he saw and that his grandparents who raised him saw. It's just amazing. And it's really disappointing. Like I said, you know, I wonder how many teachers, excuse me, in high school and middle school around the country, not just in this state, would dare to teach Clarence Thomas and the subjects that he talked about in his speech. Right. If we had more of that, you know, I attended it was a mock session, it was where there were mock committee hearings and mock House session at the Governor's Institute. It was back in mid-December, just before we came into session.
Okay.
And to hear some of the comments of the students, I think I talked about this before on the show, but it was really disheartening. I did not show up to be a participant. Excuse me, I didn't sign up early enough. I wasn't sure if I was actually going to be able to be there. I'm glad I went. But hearing some of the students say some of the things like, oh, we should learn more world history and less U.S. history. No, wrong. Absolutely not.
Right.
We need more American history.
We need our civics.
Why?
Yes.
Because we are the shining light in the world for freedom. How do I know that? Because there's anywhere from 10 to 20 million people in the last 4 years or 5 years in the previous administration rushed our borders to come here.
Right. And we have a duty.
It's not because we have an oppressive government.
Right. We have a duty and an obligation to be informed and to stay engaged and to respect and honor what our country has done and what we stand for. Exactly.
Yes. And by the way, and most of you in the listening audience know this, but it needs to be said and it needs to be repeated often. A nation cannot stand without borders.
Oh, yeah.
A state cannot stand without borders. I have somebody who walked into the State House one morning, I won't use names, currently serving legislator, and told a story about someone walking into one of the local hotels in Montpelier looking for free hotel rooms.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the hotel where they wasn't doing that, but they were basically looking for the homeless hotel program. Looking for a ride somewhere up north to another place. But this particular person who was in search of free room and board was asked, like, what sent you here?
What are you talking about? Right, right.
Well, everybody knows if you want free room and board, you come to Vermont.
And this is how we get taken advantage of.
And this is one of the things that people keep denying inside the walls of the Capitol building. Oh, that doesn't happen.
Right. It absolutely does.
Absolutely is happening.
And it's hurting people. It's hurting people who are trying to work hard and save money or just have enough to cover their expenses. And we cannot do that.
And there are people who are doing this in 3 different states, signing up for benefits in 3 different states and getting 3 checks.
Yeah, taking advantage.
Well, you and I go to work every day.
Mentality, I know.
Oh yeah, you're never going to completely get rid of it,
but of course, and the other part of it is I mean, of course, here in Vermont, we absolutely care about each other. We want to take care of people who are having a rough time, down on times, drugs, abuse, trauma, whatever it might be. But we also have to create a system where they can work themselves out of that, get the support they need, and we're not just inviting people to come and take advantage of these services. And that's the situation we have. Yeah. And the taxpayers, we cannot hold that burden for everyone who just wants to come and do that.
Right.
And that goes back to, I think, some of the things he was talking about in the speech of that's just going to destroy our towns, our state, our country.
Yeah, we can't have we don't measure success correctly in this state currently.
Right.
We need to measure our success by how many people, okay, we've gotten people in the program. How many have gotten through it? Gone from needing recovery, needing help, needing assistance in whatever shape or form.
Right.
And finding their way to the other side. Getting to the light at the end of the tunnel where they are out. They've learned a trade. They've gotten into recovery. They're managing their recovery.
Right.
They've become contributing, working, tax-paying citizens of the state where they can sustain themselves.
That's
okay?
the goal.
If we're worried about sustainability, that's what we need to be worried about. That kind of sustainability.
Absolutely. And I think also when we look at some of, just what you're referencing with his speech, is just even looking at from an education standpoint, what's happening in the public schools. And I know public schools work hard and there's a lot of good work that they're doing, but we need to make sure that children are having civics classes and American history and understanding how important our country is and how lucky we are to live here and have the constitutional rights.
How we stand out among other countries where, do a little bit of research and find out what China did, how many tens of millions, hundreds of millions between China and Russia and so many other countries. How many people have died, excuse me, since the 60s, the early 60s in Cuba, which is an oppressive,
from a communism standpoint,
oppressive government.
Right.
With Nicolae Ceausescu, there are so many instances in history, and the exception to the rule is the United States of America.
Because we respect the individual, and our Constitution, as well as our Bill of Rights, were designed to make sure that these individual rights, inalienable rights, whatever you want to call them, are intact for the individual and protected against mob rule. And that's the piece where we cannot have this collective, because we know that there's never going to be the same answer for every single person. And you do not need to put your answer on somebody else. And that's a lot of what we see coming out of the Vermont State House right now is the people who do believe they have the answers and they want to tell you how to live and how to spend your money and what you can do or can't do. And that's a problem. That completely goes against and is antithetical to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, which is what we're made of. Exactly.
Yeah, and it was very, very, very nice to hear Clarence Thomas when he first started talking about where our rights come from. And they don't come from government.
No, they don't at all.
They just do not come from government.
Yep, God, nature, divine. I know Thomas Jefferson went through that struggle of, we know that they aren't given to people by the government. They come from God.
The laws of nature and of nature's God. Yes.
And they cannot be taken. That's what that means, right?
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
So it was really inspiring speech. It should be the the subject of discussion in middle schools and high schools across this country.
I sure hope that they are doing it and they're presenting it in a way that really honors our country and what we stand for. And I just want to give props and thanks to Senator Joe Benning, who was my senator over in the kingdom for a while. He had a bill for a long time that would require civics in every school. That was one of his primary goals, was we need to ensure that these students are getting a good civics class.
I agree. I agree 100%. And we might talk later on in the show about this, but I think with what's going on with the Act 181 uproar, that one of the things I've said numerous times, and I'll say it again, I'm very thankful that we do have the level of engagement of the populace of Vermont right now.
Yes.
And it's caused a lot of people to learn about what goes on in the State House. They're getting themselves a crash course in civics.
Massive education.
Which I'm very thankful for.
Yes.
So we burned through our first segment already, Allison. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll return in a couple minutes. You're listening to Right Side Up. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Taglavia. My guest host today is Allison Despathy. Allison, thank you so much for joining me. I think we want to switch gears now. Let's talk a little bit about election integrity.
Yeah, and I was actually going to thank you, Mike, because you guys did an awesome election integrity panel and discussion on Friday, which was amazing.
Yeah, that was Friday at noon in room 11
at the State House. Yeah, it was excellent, and it was
put on by
you, Rep. Coffin, Senator Williams,
Yes.
Rep. Winters. I think
Yeah.
you guys were
He
the
was
legislators.
there, yes,
Yep.
and there were Rob Roper was there. It was put on by Vermonters for Vermont. Greg Thayer actually organized it.
Yep.
And Sarah Vieira, and I know I'm going to forget her name, two people from the National Election Integrity Network,
for the network.
EIN, were there to do the presentation, and I'm sorry, I forgot the other.
No, I learned so
attendee.
much from you guys. That was phenomenal. I mean,
but it's about basically voter ID.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We do have universal mail-in ballots here.
And a lot of struggle around that, a lot of
Right.
controversy around that came up. Yeah.
Yeah, Rob Roper brought up a lot of things that could and should be question marks.
We're very wide
with respect
open for
to
fraud.
Yes. I brought up to back in 2018, the state of Vermont was considered among all of the states to be a very secure state with respect to the security of its elections, because they're very localized.
Oh yeah, at our
Small
town level.
towns,
Right.
You have your voter checklist. Up until 2018, everybody knew everybody in the town.
Yep.
And then you had the COVID nonsense going on, and everybody fleeing cities. And now there are a lot of people who, town clerks in their own towns, don't know actually who the people who are on the checklist actually are. They don't know them by name or by their face.
And we're still doing the universal ballots.
And we're still doing that instead of just the old school way where if you needed an absentee ballot, there was a procedure where you requested it, you went in ahead of time, you had your reason for requesting that ballot, and it was a secure way to vote.
That's what makes sense.
Yes.
I mean,
I
100%.
agree with you.
But to
I
hear
agree
the
with you.
people's stories of their children have moved out, family members have moved out, people who they bought a house from are no longer living there, and they're
and still receiving
their
these ballots.
That's a
Receiving these
problem.
Yes, it is.
Definitely. That is a big problem.
Yeah.
So
And, just in my own instance, I know we had recently in the past, I don't know, month or so, there was a subdivision bylaw update that was on the ballot at town meeting. And I remember there was a public hearing, and the chair of the select board, when she opened the meeting, she said, well, take a look to your right, and if you don't know the person next to you, introduce yourself. Because she said, there's so many people in town that I don't know anymore.
right.
So, that to me was a highlight to say, because of what was said at that meeting about people not knowing so many of the new residents,
Right.
that the town clerks need help. They need a vehicle to be able to do their job efficiently and to a point where they actually know who's showing up
right
on voting day.
And just to hear, even just in thinking about the machines that calculate the votes, and they say they're not hooked up to the internet, and then what was it in Vegas where they bring the voting machines and they had people hacking those?
Well, there's a contest, and they can see how quickly they can hack them, because most of them, if it's a computer, it has a Wi-Fi access to it.
I mean, that was also disturbing. I mean, we have, because I'm planning commission chair in Danville, so we've got, our civil authority board, and they're always there at the elections and counting votes, and great crew. But when you're using the machines and when people are getting these extra ballots, that's where we have the question. I'm definitely a big fan of you show an ID.
Voter ID.
Voter ID, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to do it.
We have, not to toot my own horn here, but H670.
Yes, you introduced the bill.
Yes.
Exactly. And does that sit in GovOps right now?
It's sitting in the wall in GovOps.
Yep.
Subject: elections, conduct of elections, process of voting, voter identification. Statement of purpose of bill as introduced. This bill proposes to require voters to present valid identification based on proof of citizenship when voting in person or by early or absentee ballot. So there's all of those options
covered.
This bill will also require the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles to provide free non-driver identification cards to all eligible voters in the state for the purpose of voting upon presentation of documented proof of U.S. citizenship and proof of residency.
That's excellent.
So the reason I bring this up is because there's national polling now that shows, regardless of party, political affiliation, and all the other demographics you want to talk about, is that it's anywhere from a 75% to 87% favorable for voter identification.
Want it. People know it's important. These are our elections.
Look, to go in and buy a bottle of wine,
I know,
even as much gray hair as I have, you get carded. You get asked for ID.
And we're talking about people making laws, upholding our Constitution, the law of the land. I mean, we want to make sure that those numbers are solid.
Right.
Did you have a chance to go in and at least introduce and sort of walk through your bill?
No, I
in
haven't.
GovOps? No.
Because the Secretary of State doesn't want to do any election stuff
I know.
in an election year. Representative Coffin talked extensively about this and the reason why. So it looks like it's not going to really do anything.
Well, hopefully you'll get reelected since you have announced you're running, and then you can reintroduce it and we can see where we land. And I also want to say Representative Coffin and then Senator Williams both shared their stories about doing their tours in Iran and Afghanistan and
Iraq and Afghanistan.
Iraq, it was Iraq. Thank you. Now Iran's the one now. My goodness, but Iraq and Afghanistan, and talking about how important it was for people to be able to then come out and vote when they had this opportunity. Just how fortunate and grateful the people were, after they had the ability to go and vote and cast a vote.
Yes, and both Senator Williams and Representative Coffin talked about over in the Middle East when they served. They said, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen on the national news where people, when they went to vote, they would dip their finger in ink.
I see. I never knew that till they told the story.
I saw that, but they told stories about how, especially the women, the husbands, and their male relatives would be trying to cover up their hands because the Taliban and the radicals in the locations where the voting was taking place were watching. And if they caught people with ink on their finger, they would actually cut the fingertip off or the whole finger. And they both told stories about seeing people with that particular appendage cut off.
And that,
so
honestly, I've never heard that. And that made me cry, and it made me honestly just think about and appreciate how fortunate we are and how we, often take it for granted that we can vote.
We definitely
and many
do.
times people don't even vote. And that's where going back to making sure that these are secure elections and we have this election integrity.
Yeah. And, you brought up how people decide they don't vote. When I was running, I would come across that all the time. Oh, my vote doesn't count.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, it does.
It does.
Yes, it does. And I would tell people, and I will tell our listeners now, regardless of who you vote for, it's important that you vote. You exercise your duty as a citizen of the state of Vermont and a citizen of the United States. It's your civic duty.
It is a duty. 100%.
If you want to, I had an employee years ago who started complaining about something. This was when I was living in Maryland. And I said, hold on a minute, time out. I said, did you vote?
There you go.
No, I didn't vote. I said, then why are you complaining?
You can't complain, exactly.
Take a piece of tape and stick it over your mouth.
Exactly.
You didn't vote, so why do you think you want to complain now?
Right. And with everything going on in the state right now, I know that so many people are just hoping that Vermonters are going to come out and take the time and vote this election.
It's just
so
as important
critical.
this time. It's just as important. We've
It
got,
is.
Act 181. It's still in the forefront. Ladies and gentlemen, please do not sit back on your laurels
Get out there
and say,
do
oh,
it.
it's been fixed. Because
Right.
guess what? Talk is cheap.
Right.
And that's all we have right now.
If it was
is
fixed, you
talk.
guys wouldn't have had this big red
No.
wave that happened this past time, and thank
No.
goodness.
Yeah.
And we
So-
still have to, we gotta shift gears here and get the
Right.
focus going.
I'm
Please vote.
really, really happy that people have gotten out and voted. I'm really happy that people have gotten involved and have learned about what goes on in committees. People have asked about testifying about certain things. What do you do? How do you get into the building?
Right.
And it's the people's house. You can
Yeah.
go, and if there's a seat available in a committee room, you can sit and audit and just watch
Right.
the proceedings.
It's the people's house, exactly.
And if you don't want to do that, find a subject that matters to you. Whether it be something in, like you said, government operations and military affairs committee, or the
Energy,
environment
health,
committee,
education.
and energy,
Right.
Pick one of those, and you can actually go on Vermont.gov, click on the legislature, find the committee, and there's a hyperlink
Right.
where you can live stream it.
Right. You
And
can
if you-
watch all the meetings.
And if you've got a job where you can't watch it, you can listen to it, or you can go back and find it on either, GoldenDome.com.
Golden Dome, Tom Epsilon does that,
Yep.
right?
Or you can go on YouTube
Yep.
and watch them all. They're all
I do
preserved.
that all the time if I miss something that I'm watching in there.
So you can pay attention to all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it was a question that was asked of me, about legislators and their responsibility toward their constituents. And I said, it's a symbiotic relationship.
Right.
We need to respond and answer to the electorate. But it's not as if you go on voting day, you fill out your ballot, you put it in the slot, and you're done. You're not.
No, it's an ongoing process.
This is what we talk about here.
Right.
Stay safe, stay involved. What do I say at the end of the show?
Exactly. And the
Stay
other thing
involved.
is just the education. I mean, when I'm in there, and I'm in there every day,
Oh, yeah.
it's a massive learning process.
It's a huge
for
learning
everyone.
Yes.
And you have to love to learn and be willing to learn and communicate so we can all do it together.
Yes.
And that's what's happening right now, especially with the Act 181 piece coming
Yeah.
in, is people are all of a sudden like, wait a minute, I got something to share.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's what I like about what's going on, the interaction with the 181 Facebook group. There are a lot of people asking questions.
Yes.
There are a lot of people going out and doing a lot of research and posting it. And there are some people saying, well, there's a lot of misinformation out there. I wouldn't say there's a lot.
I don't think there's too much. There's certainly some.
There's certainly some.
Yep.
And some people have made mistakes, and they very quickly, the ones that I've seen make mistakes, have very quickly gone on and say, I was incorrect here. I corrected my math. I corrected, I found out other information, and this
Right.
is really what is the truth. Sorry, I made a mistake. There are people who have done that.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely it's an active conversation.
Yes.
And I think when you start to get really into the policy, that's where I think a lot of the confusion comes. I think there's
Yeah.
definitely confusion around Act 250 and its history and the role that it plays and it
There's
should
definitely
play.
confusion
and
about
the
it.
permitting process. But these are the pieces that we need to sort through. But first, we got to deal with Act 181. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the most imminent threat.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's going to, I mean, there you are, Mike, right?
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that in the
So,
next round, maybe.
Yeah. With respect to Act 250, it started out as 10 criteria and then went to 12, and now it's, 32?
It's like, well, with the sub criteria, there's more.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's a very intimidating process. And if there was one particular person who came in and gave really great, compelling testimony about real world experience with dealing with Act 250 and getting a jurisdictional opinion and enlightening me to the fact that Act 250 is not like a certificate of occupancy. Act 250 rides with that property.
Right.
As soon as you enter into the process,
it's tagged
all the way into the future.
For a commercial property.
Yes,
exactly
it is,
right.
That's it. So whenever something changes, you have to go back.
Right. And you have to think of what it encompasses with it being sort of an umbrella process.
Yeah.
And that's where all the other A&R permits, the DEC permits, those are the things that a lot of times give it that bad rap.
Yeah. And keeping in mind that there's not just the Act 250 process. If there's some sort of wetlands or stormwater, there's those permitting processes and those statutes and those rules that you need to be making sure that you don't run afoul of.
Right.
So it's not just Act 250.
Right.
So the process becomes very, very intimidating, and that's what's also gotten people up in arms.
Yes,
So.
and that's where I'd also say that the Land Use Review Board put in play with Act 181, they're hoping to fix this and get this squared away. And if we can remove Act 181 and let them do that work to help with this permitting process, then we can get Act 250 functional.
Yeah, so it's going to be a process, ladies and gentlemen. Buckle up. The ride might get bumpy. So we've run over a little bit here. So we're going to take a break, pay some bills. We'll be right back. You're listening to Right Side Up. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Taglavia. My co-host today is Allison Despathy. Before we get back into our discussion, rightsideUpradio@gmail.com if you'd like to drop us a line. If for some reason you can't catch us on the radio, go to WNTK.com. Find the podcast button, click on it, so you can scroll down to Right Side Up and listen to any number of our shows. You can find us on Podbean. You can find us on 802 Scoop Facebook. You can find us on 802 Scoop YouTube. And you can also find us on GraniteGrock.com. So, and by all means, please share it with a friend who may want to hear it, may need to hear it. So,
keep spreading the word, right?
So, Allison, what are we going to talk about?
Well, okay. So, Mike, what has been on my mind as I'm watching this Act 181 piece unfold, and I think right now everybody sort of who is tuned in is like, what's really going to happen? We had this discussion in your committee, right? You guys had this discussion, and it was, okay, everybody seems to be in consensus of road rule jurisdiction.
Verbally, anyway.
Verbally, that's the piece, definitely.
Right. It's just verbal.
Road rule jurisdiction, Tier 3, if those are going away. But I think many people understand that this was part of the quote-unquote grand bargain, right?
Yeah.
Where Amy Sheldon, chair of Environment Committee, Seth Bongartz, he was vice chair at the time in 2024
now
when this
Senator.
passed through. Yep, now Senator, that's right. Basically, they said, okay, well, if we're going to give you these exemptions in these Tier 1 village town areas for building and housing, then we're going to do this, ecological protection through Tier 2 and Tier 3. And obviously that's exploded and people are like, oh, no. And that was a gross distortion.
Basically, it just dawned on me. So basically, in this committee, there was a decision to take 3% of Vermont and encourage development, and the other 97% of Vermont, 26,000
really
plus or minus
hard
parcels,
and
use them as mitigation project for the building that was going elsewhere.
That was the grand bargain.
Okay, so this was the mitigation effort.
Yes, the trade-off.
If we're going to give you
obviously
this,
has exploded and failed as it should, because that was a horrible approach, right?
Well,
and a gross distortion.
It's a gross distortion. And there was one very good article, I think it was a Substack that was posted on the 181 site about power over versus power with.
Yes.
And it's very true.
Yes.
Okay. And then you have Neil Ryan, who talked about green grabbing or greenwashing, which is also, it's very eye-opening when you take it from that perspective.
Right.
And I think there are a lot of people who do take it from that perspective.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean that from a power over standpoint.
Yes.
That's the perspective.
Because as we've
which
said,
is very dangerous.
Very dangerous. And a lot of our worth and value for those of us like myself who work hard but don't have money is in our land.
Exactly.
So if you're going to come and all of a sudden say, if you're going to do anything on your land, you're going to trigger this Act 250 process, and that's going to cost money and put up barriers. I mean, that's just going to push people off land. And that's what the whole, one of the big issues with this Act 181 Rural Vermont Rising piece has brought forward. But I would also say that I think it's important for people to keep in mind that Act 250 is a good law when applied properly for commercial development. We want responsible commercial development. This was a gross distortion of Act 250 against Vermonters. And fortunately, hopefully, we'll see what your committee does, obviously, right?
Right.
And see if it actually does repeal these. But right now, the big question is, okay, if these are going to get repealed, what about the concerns that have now come this past week in your committee with the original concerns as to where Tier 2 and Tier 3 came from? And this was wildlife corridors, habitat connectors, sensitive ecological areas, forest fragmentation. What are we going to do around that? And I just have to tell you, Mike, because I've been at the State House for years, right? For several years, watching closely, especially in environment. And I was deeply concerned because out of the same committee, 2024, same year, same chair, we had the passing of the Renewable Energy Standard.
Okay.
Passed over the governor's veto, again, just like Act 181. And I just have to say, this Renewable Energy Standard is aggressive, high risk. It completely serves renewable energy developers at the expense of us as electric ratepayers, as well as at the expense of our environment, meaning our forests and our ag land, which we're seeing cleared for industrial solar and more to come.
And you and I think one of the first times you joined me was talking about the Shaftesbury solar project.
Oh, exactly. And that brings me right back to that right now, because the concerns really are, and I just want to point this out, and I just really would love to see your committee go in this direction, because I feel this could be the real solution. So Annette Smith, Vermonters for a Clean Environment, who I have so much respect for, she is amazing. She, in 2024, before I was working for her, she came in and she testified in both the House Environment and Senate Natural Resources. And she said, hey, if you're going to do this renewable energy standard, and first she was pushing back on it because when you know the details of this is hideous. She said, you've got to talk about siting. Where are these projects going to go? Are you literally going to allow them to go all over our forests and our farms? And right now they're incentivized to do this. They get tax break incentives. They don't pay education tax. Don't get me started. That's a whole other ballgame. But the reason I bring it up, Mike, is because the Shaftesbury decision. 104 acres, prime ag land, forest, 40 acres of forest with mature forest, rolling hills, wiped out. That's 104 acres for 80 acres of solar panels. And we're not talking about just forest fragmentation or wildlife corridor or habitat connector, compromise. We're talking about a full clear cut, a full, complete, utter, total destruction. So this siting was never talked about, even though Annette tried when we were doing this renewable energy standard. And what I would love to see is for them to go back, like they are with Act 181, get rid of that Tier 2 and Tier 3 in Act 181. I personally also feel there's issues around Tier 1, but that's another conversation.
I think in the future, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be looked at.
But
we can't jump in and do all of it all at once.
Right,
I mean, It was a mess to
Understandable.
begin with. Granted, I agree with you.
But
We've
bits
got
at a
enough.
time. This is this would be a big step.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just thinking to myself, right now I know that your committee chair and many on your committee are looking for if we're not doing Tier 2, Tier 3, what are we doing? And my response to them would be, go back, fix that renewable energy standard, and make sure you talk about siting so we are not destroying our forests and our agricultural land as we go put so much more of this industrial solar online.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really care about forest fragmentation, wildlife corridors, habitat connectors, and ecologically sensitive areas. There's no way that this would be allowed to happen and incentivized to happen in the way it is. And it has nothing to do with private property rights. I'm a massive private property right person. This is what has stirred, obviously, Act 181.
Yeah.
But these projects would not be happening in the way they are if they were not incentivized in the capacity they are in this state.
Yeah, and I
they
wonder,
have to. They should be paying their fair share. They're not.
No, and there's a couple things that come to mind. Number one, if the farmer who owned the land, whoever it was purchased from, was given the same subsidies to be able to continue farming,
Right.
what would that farmer be able to do?
Right. Much rather see the
Number
farmer
one.
subsidized. Right.
Number two, we have a project here in Barry that is, there's an amendment to a piece of legislation. What is it, S223?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
It's an anti-degradation bill with respect to lakes and ponds and rivers to maintain the class of water that we have, to try to keep as many maintained as Class A waters, which is it's a great idea.
Makes
great
sense.
idea.
Yep.
But we have an amendment that is to reduce a buffer to enable projects in certain areas, preferably with respect to the governor's EO, in areas where typically tier 1A, tier 1B.
Right,
Okay? Mostly
right.
tier 1A.
Right.
They have infrastructure. So in areas where there's already more dense population, be able to put this in.
Reduce the buffer, right.
It just dawned on me, if there was going to be a solar siting there, would this even be discussed? Would there be pushback against it?
Right.
Because it's a solar project instead of housing.
Right.
If we need energy, which we do, and we need housing, which we do, whether it's a solar siting or housing, it needs to get the same scrutiny. And I think what you're saying is it's not getting the same.
It does not get the same
No, and
scrutiny.
I think I agree with you.
No, it does
I think
not
I do.
at all.
You know,
Right.
and if we look not far across the border from Shasbury, there's the ORES. I can't remember
Is this in New York?
This
what
is
you
in
were
New
talking?
York.
Yeah.
There's an agency in New York that is basically doing the same thing. They are allowing or fast tracking, if you will, these
Right.
solar projects, and they're far more massive than we're seeing in Vermont right now.
Oh, so disturbing.
Yeah, it is disturbing.
For unreliable, intermittent
is the biggest thing.
expensive, exactly,
And
destroying the environment.
yeah, and
Yeah.
one of the reasons we had what was a siting bill? I forgot the number of the siting bill that passed out of the House. But I was against it, not because I'm against solar. I use solar.
Oh, you mean 710,
Was it 710?
Yes, yeah.
And it didn't have any testing in there.
Right.
There was no
right.
testing. What about the decommissioning? I
Yeah.
don't think there was anything with regard to decommissioning in
No,
there.
they're
So
having that conversation in Senate Finance
Well,
right now.
good.
Long overdue conversation.
that's very good because
Yes.
that conversation wasn't had
No.
in House Energy. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, in 2023 and 24, it was House Energy and Environment Committee.
right.
In 2025, that was broken up. Now there's Energy and Digital IT and House Environment.
Exactly.
So because of that, it's harder to have germaneness when you're coming to amendments and changing wording.
Yes.
So there was
which is really important moves to be made, especially, by you guys this session, depending on how it goes.
well, yeah. So
Yeah.
will it get moved back? Should it get moved back?
Right.
So
They both have a lot of work to do because I watch both those committees very, very carefully, and there's tremendous work in both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that need to happen. They won't happen this session, but the next session, if we're going to improve the economy, if we're going to give the voters and the residents of Vermont, the citizens of Vermont, a reason to take a huge, massive, deep breath, a sigh of relief, then we're going to need to introduce legislation that's looking to shrink the green books.
Yeah. Yes.
What do we have in there? Number one, that's redundant. Number two, that really needs to be repealed because it's It's not helpful. It's overreach.
Right.
And it's crushing the affordability issue. It's making Vermonters
No, things have to
at
be
the dinner table
simplified.
decide, are we going to stay or are we going to leave?
know, forget
I
it.
hear that every week, and I really look forward to a day when I stop hearing that
Yes.
on a weekly basis.
And I just met a senator, or no, a person, a man who's decided to run for senator.
There,
Rusty Sage, and he was in the State House, and he said, basically, I had a conversation with him, and he said I was either going to move or I was going to run. So here he is.
Well,
he's
there you
staying
go.
and he's running, and I think there's more and more. I met another man. His name is Michael White. He's stepping up to run because of the Act 181 uproar. So I
Okay.
think it's bringing people sort of into the arena to see what we can try to figure out and get this done right.
Yeah, well, I've had some conversations like that, similar with people, and it's one of those things where it's still on people's mind. Am I going to run, or am I going to leave?
Right, right.
And it's interesting you bring that up because I had that same conversation with somebody last week.
Yep.
And
It's
the
a big
decision I
question.
heard was not the one that you got, unfortunately.
Oh, really? They were moving. Oh,
No,
no.
not yet. Not
Okay.
yet, but it's still on the table.
Right.
It's still on the table. So,
Give it some time.
yeah, we got to think about that. We
Right.
got to think about that. If you stay and join the fight and help people like me and Allison and so many other people who are up there in the State House trying to do the right thing,
Right.
trying to make life easier, trying to bring back the standard of living that we know we can get to.
Right. And
It's just-
correcting some of the stuff that has to be corrected. I
Yes.
mean, there's a lot of laws on the books that need to be gone, repealed, fixed.
Couldn't
amended,
agree with you more.
Clean it up. And that's where if we could just go in and keep it simple and clean it up and
Yeah.
do the budget
Use
and
the
deal
KISS
with the priorities.
The KISS method.
Keep
it simple, stupid.
Exactly.
All right. With that, I think we're going to call it quits for this week. Thank you for joining me, Allison.
Yes, thanks,
And
Mike.
ladies and gentlemen, remember, stay safe, stay informed, listen to Right Side Up.